1989, and as the world prepared for the final decade of the 20th century, the year was awash with the sea of change. Dramatic events in Eastern Europe were headlined with the opening of previously strictly controlled borders, the dismantling of the infamous Berlin Wall, and major political and social reassessment. The seeds of change sown some years before in the shipyards of Gdansk and in the policy of perestroika, projected by the charismatic Mikhail Gorbachev, blossomed with awesome speed. In April of 1990, against this background of positive renewal and change, an American choir, Gloriae Dei Cantores, at the invitation of the local authorities, visited Czechoslovakia and the USSR. This is no ordinary choir. Gloriae Dei Cantores from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, is dedicated to the pursuit of excellence. It's one of the very few choirs in the world to be critically acclaimed as masters of the Gregorian chant, and has an extensive classical repertoire developed under the choir's director, Elizabeth Patterson.
And remember that in this particular auditorium, you've got to be sure to fill to the back. That means all the phrasing, the expression on your faces, everything.
No fly-by-night operation here. These men and women are professional choristers. Their successful concert tours of the great cathedrals of England and to Hungary and Yugoslavia brought them to the attention of the major choir schools and concert halls of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. Gloriae Dei Cantores were enthusiastically invited to sing in Czechoslovakia and the USSR. This film is about that tour. It's not a travelogue, a day-by-day account, or merely a diary of what was seen and done. It's a film about people and their music. A choir, a people from the West, the United States of America, sharing their music and their beliefs with the people in the East, the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. This is the story of one group of people's response to a call to the East. Our story starts not in Eastern Europe, but on the eastern seaboard of the United States of America. Here, on the edge of a sometimes cruel Atlantic Ocean, is New England, where the Pilgrim Fathers first settled in 1620. Cape Cod, the great flexed arm that extends off the southern coast of Massachusetts, is characteristically picturesque of New England. Scenic towns, prosperous farms, and unspoiled lakes and forests. The resident home of the choir, Gloriae Dei Cantores, is here in Cape Cod, at the tiny fishing harbour of Orleans. Gloriae Dei Cantores Latin for singers to the glory of God, are members of the community of Jesus, a religious community of individuals and families from a variety of backgrounds and walks of life who feel called to serve God together. Rather like the Pilgrim Fathers, each home within the community campus has a biblical name. For the charism of this community, and therefore its choir, Gloriae Dei Cantores, is a commitment to the Word of God.
The choir, to the best of its ability, tries to live what it sings. That is why I think this choir sings the way that it does, and why God is able to move through them the way He does, because it is a direct outgrowth of the life in this community.
In each one of us, there is a deep desire in our hearts to live what we are singing and what we have been taught as the way of the cross, as the way of living for Christ.
I feel that being able to sing in this way is the highest calling a person could have. And I'm very blessed and feel very privileged to be able to do this.
New England was founded by men and women who were determined to change society. Gloriae Dei Cantores, tour to Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union, would bring the choir to a society on the very brink of change. There is a legend that at some time in the 9th century, a princess of a Slav tribe known as the Czechs stood upon a high rock above a river and uttered the prophecy, "I see a city whose splendor shall reach the stars." The princess was Libushi, the river Vltava, and the city was to become Praha, or Prague. Prague is the capital city of Czechoslovakia. The distinctive architecture of its palaces, halls, squares and churches, a touch Viennese, belies the fact to the visitor that until recently this was a communist country, possibly a sinister environment for a Christian choir to visit in a professional capacity. When Gloriae Dei Cantores planned that their concert tour would begin in Prague, communism still prevailed. The tender revolution of Czechoslovakia had not begun.
When they came here for the first time to discuss the project of the tour, this was just on the eve of the revolution. Only 2 weeks later, the revolution came. This is what was absolutely unique on that revolution if you compare it with any other storms, revolutionary storms in other parts of the world. Shocking the rest of the world, because there was not a single shop window which would be broken or car which would be demolished. Nothing like that. The revolution completely changed the context of the tour of the choir. I was afraid about getting permission to sing in secular concert halls with Christian choir. That problem completely disappeared. What really is nice on the Gloriae Dei Cantores is this is really visible, that this is not just choir singing some repertoire as professional singers. You can recognize their commitment in singing. And if you reflect that recognition, you will come easily to the question, how come there is such a commitment in their singing? It is raising other questions about their Christian faith, about their commitment in service, and so I really enjoy listening to them. The more I am listening to them, the more I am interested in getting some information about their community.
The Ottokar Jeremiah Hall in České Budějovice was to be the first concert of this tour. An hour's drive south of Prague, České Budějovice has for centuries been the effective centre of southern Bohemia. The medieval town square is one of the most spacious in northern Europe. No two pastel-coloured facades are alike, yet they contrast effectively with the Black Tower, which affords extensive views of the town. But for the choir, this is definitely not a sightseeing trip. There's work to be done.
Okay, now first altos, that was all the same. Long and legato, no breathing. My name's Elizabeth Patterson and I'm the director of the choir. A lot of people ask me, what's so good about this choir? What's so different about this choir? I think it's the fact that they all have a call and have answered a call to a religious way of life themselves, coming from an ecumenical community, giving their lives over to try to find and to try to live out God's will every day, means that they have something beyond themselves, something that is a bigger goal. It's a goal beyond just singing good music. It's a goal to be used of God in every way, every moment of their lives, and music is only a part of that. But music's a very strong part of it for them, for the hours they have to spend, and they have learned how music has the capacity to slip under this fence that we put up with each other. Opinions, walls, traditions, things that we build up over the years. Music somehow slips under that fence and touches the heart.
Gloriae Dei Cantores is a professional choir, professional in expertise and professional in outlook, always eager to learn.
Long pressure, which was more than...
A seminar with Petra Eben, a leading Czech composer, was one of the frequent opportunities built into this concert tour for the members of Gloriae Dei Cantores to learn and share.
So it was really a life...
Gloriae Dei Cantores, singers to the glory of God, are people from diverse backgrounds. Lay men and women live in community together with religious brothers and sisters. They're not just any choir singing sacred and classical music. Their particular bonding, their common pursuit, is their Christian faith together, their spiritual life of prayer.
I'm Brother Peter Logan. I've been at the Community of Jesus since I was 22 years old. I know that when I don't engage in a life of prayer, that my life is lacking. There is a depth and a dimension of understanding, of sensitivity to other people, to God, to the moving of the Holy Spirit that I don't have if I'm not engaging in a life of prayer.
I think one of the things before we left that was very helpful to me was somebody said, make sure you keep thinking, although this choir is going to bring the Spirit of Christ to Eastern Europe and to the Soviet Union, but make sure you remember that God also wants to do a work in you. So that whenever we would hit these points of frustration or things not going right, and there were many things, if you could just keep your mind on that and that God was working through these circumstances, then somehow all that kind of took its proper place in perspective.
I'm Alan McMillan, and I'm composer in residence with Gloriae Dei Cantores. My responsibilities include composing and arranging for the choir, as well as singing bass in the choir. For me, composition has become increasingly a devotional activity. It's really become a place where I meet God. I find poetry, texts that seem to speak to me in a personal kind of a way, and I try to respond to that in the music that I write. Czechoslovakia was a warm, personal experience. I can't really tell you why, but I responded very much to the people, to the country. I have studied Czech music, and somehow to see the inspiration for it in the country and in the people was a very moving experience. On Good Friday, we were invited to sing in Hostialkova, a little village nestled in the mountains of central Czechoslovakia. There the choir performed one of my works for the first time. It's called Lord Jesu, When I Think of Thee. It's based on a poem I came across by an English mystic poet of the 14th century, Richard Rolla of Hampole. It paints a vivid picture of the crucifixion and then goes on to express deep feelings of gratitude and a desire to share in the kind of sufferings Mary experienced at the foot of the cross. I was deeply touched by this poem and set it to music. I'm told that well over 2,000 people crammed into the tiny church in Hostialkova to hear us. They must have come from miles around. It's only a small village. It was such an honor for all of us to meet these people. They really opened their hearts to us.
Her mother and father. Oh, God bless you. Nice to meet you. We had such a nice time. Yes, we had such a good time. Yeah. Spencer Tracy here.
We will pray for you. You pray for us. Bye-bye.
I think it proved to me that there are few divisions between us, and music can obviously break down what barriers there are.
With a schedule so very carefully planned to take advantage of as many engagements as possible, rehearsal and preparation are paramount, wherever you are. It's not easy. Gloriae Dei Cantores' tour of Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union included 3,102 musical manuscripts, 3 in Czechoslovakian and 13 in Russian, 68 sets of concert dresses, 19 sets of tuxedos, 42 sets of choir robes, 4 herald trumpets, 3 trombones, a tuba, a euphonium, 26 handbells. The logistics of moving any large group around a foreign country is difficult, and for a professional choir even more so. Yet standards have to be maintained.
Problems on a trip like this take a lot of forethought. While you're doing concert 1, you have to be thinking about concert 15. You cannot possibly do concert 1 as if there are no other concerts behind it. Well, I always try to see that the choir has approximately 2 hours of rehearsal on a tour like this. First of all, it is to get comfortable in the hall. It gives them a chance to test the acoustics, and that means they're going to know where to place their voice in that hall and what kind of blend they're going to get. So it's good for those kinds of reasons. But it's also extremely good because during that time, as they work with the hall, they can make the hall their sort of resident home of worship for that small span of time. And so in coming there and standing on the stage and trying to make that spirit of worship come down in the performance, that 2 hours of rehearsal is necessary, even if they don't do a lot of singing there, even if they just go out and sit in the seats. It's got to become like the inside of their own chapel at home to them.
Let's go, choir. That was it. Watch your B flat, tenors.
Yeah, don't push the tempo, please, tenors. But then altos, when you hear the tenors push the tempo, you hesitate then. And you're slow on your entrance. You cannot compensate, dare I say it, self-righteously by then slowing it down and saying, the tenors just did it wrong, and then you miss your entrance.
Almost at the junction of Austria, Hungary and Czechoslovakia lies the city of Bratislava. Perhaps this is what gives it its cosmopolitan air, to which the busy River Danube traffic contributes. Bratislava, where Gloriae Dei Cantores would spend the Easter weekend, would be their last port of call in Czechoslovakia before entering the Soviet Union. It's an ancient city that preserves its tradition and doesn't rush into change, hence the covered-up statues of communist leaders patiently waiting to be dismantled. Here in Bratislava, the choir would give a farewell concert and sing at Lutheran and Baptist services, meeting people, learning and sharing. With so many openly attending services in church now, the choir could be forgiven for thinking that prior to the revolution, the main hindrance for Christians here was denial of access to a church.
We did not have access to mass media, we did not have access to, so to say, street evangelism. We did not have access to various jobs and key positions, but what we always had was the churches. And what we did inside our churches was pretty the same as you do inside your church. But in our churches we celebrated our Lord as you do in your church. So of course now there are more people in the church. I was told that today there was about 3,000 people attending this worship. So of course people feel more free to come to the church and to practice their faith. I hope that I will have opportunity in future to see not only Gloriae Dei Cantores again, but to see the community. And this is my desire. Ecumenical movement needs common commitment, common service. And this is precisely what they do, what they have. Therefore, it is so extremely attractive to me. So I wish good luck them and God's blessing in their service, in the Soviet Union as well as at home.
Midnight in Moscow. Gloriae Dei Cantores were in the Soviet Union. A demanding 10 days of concerts in Moscow and Leningrad lay ahead of them. Moscow, the capital of the Soviet Union, is a city of high tradition. Its imposing architecture is now well known to millions of television viewers around the world. The Kremlin, meaning fortified stronghold, is the seat of government. The palaces, churches and cathedrals within its walls are now museums, as is St. Basil's on Red Square, built by Ivan the Terrible. All now a reminder of distant days when the Orthodox faith and the Russian government were totally allied. Today's Western visitor is likely to be particularly impressed with Moscow's clean and efficient metro system. And the city's legendary food lines have now a Western cousin. Muscovites, the citizens of Moscow, love their music. They know good singing when they hear it and do not suffer the amateur. As Gloriae Dei Cantores were the first American choir to be invited by the Soviet authorities to sing in secular concert halls as well as churches, local expectations would be particularly high. The Russians are great concert goers. It's a very specific tradition in this part of the world. Ballet, opera, great choirs and orchestras are known not just to the cultural elite, for audiences are made up from lovers of the arts from all walks of life. Usually concert halls and theatres are filled to capacity. Demand is very high, so most Moscow performances are televised to viewers throughout the entire Soviet Union. As regular attenders in the theatres and concert halls of Moscow, these people are natural critics. Gloriae Dei's premiere concert, at which they would sing in Russian before the Russian people, would be heard by critical ears.
The excitement that the Russian people had when they heard their songs, I think, probably came from two things. One, the choir had really worked extremely hard, had done everything they could to take on the Russian sound and the Russian viewpoint, as well as been extremely careful and worked long hours on the Russian pronunciation. And I think they appreciated that, because they knew how difficult it was for a choir from the West to sound like a choir from the East. The other thing, I think, is As a choir, we were the first to sing many of their Russian liturgical pieces from the concert stage in an approved of manner. By that I mean with the blessing of the government. And I think that gave their hearts such a leap of hope.
I think the response that was the most moving for us was to the Russian music that we sang in Moscow and Leningrad. I'm not sure any of us expected such an enthusiastic and such a warm response. And it's my understanding that a lot of this sacred music hadn't been heard in decades, and in a sense, for them, it was a gift. So much of what we're trying to do is bridge what has been for so many years a gap between these countries due to political divisions, whatever other divisions might be there. And God has paved a way for us to do this through the music.
That's right.
The technical musical perfection strived for by Gloriae Dei Cantores is partly achieved by discipline, building, preparing, continually raising standards, and a firm conviction in what they are doing and why, all backed up with a thorough grounding in choral techniques.
See that person there, do you think?
You should be able to.
So I
would think so. These things, the drapes will undoubtedly. I am Richard Pugsley, the director of chant for the Gloriae Dei Cantores. The chant itself is the oldest form of worship music known to the Western world or to the Eastern world. The kind of chant that we use is from the 9th century, although its ancestry goes back to almost 4,000 years. In our visit to Czechoslovakia and the USSR, the use that we made of chant was not something that was common practice among most of them. There are certain parts of the Soviet Union where chant was well known, but most of the country, in both Czechoslovakia and in Russia, it was not a commonly used kind of music. Being Russian Orthodox, they have their own kind of chant. So the Gregorian chant was a fairly unique kind of sound to them, and I think much appreciated by them.
We have learned some Russian songs to sing in this country.
Members of the Moscow Academy invited Gloriae Dei Cantores to participate with them in a seminar on Russian and Western religious music.
Дорогие сестры и братья, разрешите вас.
Though simultaneous translation is a must for introductions, the language of music crosses all borders and cultures.
Воистину воскресе.
The Moscow Academy and Gloriae Dei Cantores might have somewhat diverse repertoires, but their professionalism and sense of purpose in musical traditions are at one.
Bring to all of you our heartfelt thanks and our gratefulness for all the work that you have done on our behalf.
Assisting Gloriae Dei at this seminar was one of its expert consultants, George Guest, choir master of St John's College at Cambridge University, England.
I thought that you might like to hear just a little bit of a Mass by Lassus. He was a very prolific composer, wrote an immense amount of music, masses, motets of all kinds. And this is a Mass in 8 parts, and we thought that we would like to sing the Kyrie for you.
We learned a great deal from our experience with our friends in the USSR, but we gained, I think, a depth of spirituality. We experienced something from them that is not a part of our culture, simply because none of us have experienced the sort of life that they have, the kind of oppression, the kind of doing without things that we would consider absolutely vital to life. Somehow the life that comes out of them in their worship and in their singing has a richness and a wealth and a depth that was a wonderful experience for us to share in.
Господина нашего, высокопреосвященнейшего Петерима, всегда ныне и присно, и во веки веков.
Singing at services, sharing at seminars, contributing at concerts meant a full schedule in Moscow, but this, remember, is an American choir. No time wasting here. An unexpected invitation, nay command, from the Ministry of Culture was to perform before professional musicians from all over Moscow at the prestigious Hall of Columns. Such an invitation could not be refused. A double-edged compliment, nice to be asked, but before such a critical audience of one's peers, there was hardly time to prepare for such a baptism of fire.
Trying to gauge success is an interesting process. Success is an intangible thing. Yes, I suppose numbers make a difference, or at least give you a little indication, but you can have packed out houses and have no response from the audience, and then you know this is not a success, this is a failure. But we went for a different type of success, and that kind of success is a little harder to gauge. The kind of success we were looking for is a way to bridge heart to heart, a way to explain to them we've come to understand about you and your history, and we've come for you to understand about us. You can read a lot about music, but until you understand the history, until you experience a little bit of life as they experience it, their surroundings, until you see some things through their eyes, it's difficult to sing the music with a little bit of their heart.
With just a few days left in the Soviet Union, a final concert in the city of Leningrad, the Gloriae Dei Cantores tour was nearly at an end. Since arriving in Prague some 3 weeks back, this choir had given 8 major concerts, sung at services in Lutheran, Baptist, Protestant, Roman Catholic and Orthodox churches, as well as having participated in choral seminars. the 47 members of Gloriae Dei Cantores, together with some 3,000 kilos of precious though heavy baggage, had nearly achieved all they'd set out to do. Leningrad, formerly called St. Petersburg and Petrograd, is after Moscow the largest city in the Soviet Union. With its uniform Baroque and neoclassical architecture, it's often known as the Venice of the North. Leningrad, named after Vladimir Lenin, founder of the world's first Soviet state, was the focal spark of the October Revolution in 1917. The firing of a gun from the battle cruiser Aurora was the signal to the Bolsheviks to storm the Winter Palace. Today, Leningrad's classical appearance somewhat masks its history of suffering. The eternal flame at the Piskarov Cemetery honors the millions who died here during the Second World War, many from starvation, when German troops blockaded the city of Leningrad for 900 days. It is perhaps fitting that this city of the revolution should host the final concert of Gloriae Dei's revolutionary tour, for revolutionary it had certainly been, an unprecedented opportunity to sing to and participate in worship with Christians of all denominations, especially when the formal invitations to the choir from the Czech and Russian authorities had been given when the Iron Curtain was still a cold and definite reality. Instrumental in securing such unlimited access for Gloriae Dei was His Eminence Alexei, Metropolitan of Leningrad. His surprise visit to the choir at their hotel was to be one of his last engagements before his appointment as Patriarch of all Russia. Leningrad's ornate Capella Hall, home of the prestigious and world-renowned Capella Academy Choir, would be the setting for Gloriae Dei's concluding concert, but a shared rehearsal. Professional choristers from both East and West would be a memorable sealing of the success of this tour.
I think the highlight for me was to know from the response of the people that we're singing to that they had really received Jesus Christ.
I think that the success of the tour is in seeing what happened in the people that we met over there, knowing that there was a small window, and who knows how long that window is going to be open for.
We were told by one of the choir members of a choir in the USSR that while they had a 400-year history of singing, and they were all professional singers, we had something unique they did not have. We do it out of a dedication. It's life that we live ourselves.